It's a bony, omnivorous freshwater fish originally found in the slow-running rivers of southern China, one of the Cyprinidae or carp. Not a variety of golden carp, but related to it. The fish I'm describing is Carassius auratus, the fish of the fairground. It all started in the land of dragons and mythical monsters that was China of 1,000 years ago. It was back in the Song dynasty. The wild goldfish was, and still is, a dull grey carp rather like this. But someone in that age-old China noticed a few had some bright red scales. By breeding these red-marked fish together, slowly the decorative fish of today was developed. Our bright red goldfish is a totally man-made fish. This 17th century Chinese painting shows a family surveying its pet goldfish. You can see a scene just like that in Pekin today. The bowls have hardly changed at all, although the fish may have done so, for careful breeding still produces a fresh variety every few years. This one is labelled red tiger head. To us, these shapes are often grotesque, but perhaps not more so than some of our dog breeds. These bubble eyes could no more cope with the wild than fly, but then neither could the British bulldog. Rows of weed-filled bowls harbour the young fish while they develop their colours. Only when they're adult do they develop the brightness of these celestials. The fry are brown and camouflaged. The translation of the Chinese name is Red Look to the Sky. To us, this is a calico pom-pom. And this appalling monstrosity has been bred to have no gill covers, but you don't see it in this country. We call this a lion head. Curiously, to the Chinese, it's a tiger head. And this is a water bubble. Again, they're not popular in Britain. It's difficult to believe that all these fish are still one species with one Chinese ancestor. A simple genetic tree shows us how it's been done. At the top is the original grey carp that led directly to our common goldfish. Going along another path, but still from the same stock, came the shubunkin with its complicated tail shape. Derived less directly via the common goldfishes are the black moors and the bubble eyes. Routed through the shubunkins are the multicoloured calicos. But now it gets complicated. A combination of common goldfish and calico has led to the lionheads, whereas the fantails are simply modified commons. There are now at least 126 different varieties. All these exotica are not what most of us have in our ponds. This one is well and carefully stocked, but most hold a collection of commons with a few rather variegated and motley shubunkins. Fish will spawn easily in garden ponds as the water temperature rises in spring. Then the smaller male chases and bumps the egg-laden female until she drops her eggs. They call it driving her. Like most fish, goldfish lay an enormous number of eggs, over 1,000, each about 1.5 millimetres across. By the third day, its heart is beating and pumping blood around the body. The newly hatched fry lives off its yolk sac for 48 hours. After that, it's eating tiny creatures for the successful, or being eaten by a fungus for the unsuccessful. Young common goldfish are black, like wild goldfish, for at least 3 or 4 months. An egg-heavy female shubunkin is being driven by 3 males. Of the 1,000 or so eggs she will lay, only about 5% will survive in a pond like this. One of the curious things about very young fish is that they sink rather than swim. To float, they must fight against gravity and swim up to the surface. They do it to fill their swim bladder with air. Once full, you can see it shining through their body. It is that air in their swim bladder that gives the fish, whatever its size, the buoyancy to swim more easily and float in mid-water. The enormous number of surplus eggs and fry is a safeguard against disasters and predators. A water scorpion like this will take many tiny fish. A huge surplus of young also means that if some tragedy overtook the pond, a few remaining fish could repopulate it quickly and easily. Now, having survived the first 2 months or so, their newfound scarlet leads to another hazard. The bright colour provides a very good aiming mark from above. A goldfish eaten by a kingfisher presumably had no idea what happened, no time to be frightened. But that's not so in this situation, and a rather special microphone picks up the goldfish's response, greatly amplified. A series of squeaks and squeals, which ironically sound rather cat-like. In fact, a goldfish's hearing, in the conventional sense, is rather feeble. Much more, it depends upon what's called its lateral line system. What is happening is that the cat's claws on the outside of the bowl send vibrations through the bowl and water and are received by the fish's lateral line. In many ways, it's a system that serves the same purpose as our ears, and the fish is obviously distressed by what it senses. In fact, even without the cat, bowls like this are very unsuitable for goldfish. The rule is that each inch of goldfish needs 8 pints of water and 24 square inches of surface. As most fish you buy are about 2 inches long, each one needs about 16 pints. Only with sufficient space will the fish develop properly, and it's capable of living 25 years and growing over 1 foot long. 5 pints only, not big enough for a single 1-inch fish. It's by understanding the right basic relationships between volume and surface area, plus 1,001 other skills, that goldfish farming has become big business in the United States. There are 200 acres of ponds on this farm in Pennsylvania, and they produce 500,000 goldfish each week. It's a family business that started back in 1923. Now it's one of the largest in the United States. Dick Rice, who now runs the farm, is collecting his brood goldfish. He handles them carefully, for they represent his breeding stock and his livelihood. From amongst the many, he takes the few carefully chosen parents and carries them to the spawning tanks outside. The males tend to start driving the females in the evening, but the eggs are not laid until early the next morning. Next morning, the females are desperate to spawn, and they will lay their eggs on these mats of Spanish moss in a frenzy. As the mats become fully loaded with eggs, they are changed for fresh ones. The egg-filled mats are transferred to the hatching ponds, and in about 8 weeks' time, these eggs will have turned into inch-long goldfish and be ready for sale. To check the quality of the eggs, a sample female goldfish is stripped. She should produce about 1,000 eggs. The eggs are also still pouring out of the females on the mats. The males, just as they were in the garden pond, are rubbing alongside and fertilizing the eggs. Such richness provides easy pickings for the wild predators. Grackles, bullfrogs, snapper turtles, they take 15% of all the young fish. Dick Rice philosophically says that he doesn't blame the wildlife for cashing in on such a rich protein source as he breeds so much. There is no way that he can afford the cost of netting or other defences to keep the predators out. All in all, 4.5 million fish will go to feed these predators this year alone. Nowadays, it's massive American farms like this that provide most of the common goldfish that come to Britain. But it was only around 1870 that goldfish first arrived in America from Japan. Those early days are light years away from this mechanised near factory. Now 1/2 ton of fish food has to be spread each day to produce the yearly crop of 30 million fish. The whole operation is on such a scale that it needs a full-time scientist to keep constant watch for disease. What he's mostly looking for are fungus infections, for fin rot and for various kinds of ulcerations. The mottled pattern on this scale shows it has a fungus infection. All these conditions can destroy fish, and all of them can turn up in your aquarium or pond. Always the first basic treatment is a bath of salt water. For a business operation on this scale, the enormous production must be matched by an equally efficient distribution system, and it must be quick. These fish will spread over the whole of the United States, Canada, and Great Britain. To London, it takes only 16 hours. Some finish up no worse off than imprisoned in a bowl like this. Others have a much more sinister fate. Half the fish produced on that huge farm feed a ghoulish new craze of the northern United States, keeping piranhas. In the southern states, piranhas are illegal pets. The authorities would prefer them not to be loosed into the river systems where it might be warm enough for them to survive. Before the fish are distributed, they are sized and graded almost as exactly as fish fingers. These are comets and common goldfish. You might feel they would be damaged by being out of water. In fact, they say immediate losses through this kind of handling are very small. Even crammed together like this, surprisingly they seem to suffer no obvious ill effects, as long as it's only for a short while. The water in the boxes has been especially pepped up with extra oxygen, so that their valuable contents will survive in good condition until they arrive at their worldwide destinations. Even the lorry that starts them on their journey is a mobile fridge that keeps them at just the right cool temperature. In Britain, the majority of children probably meet their first goldfish in a funfair plastic bag. But wherever they come from, there are something like 25 million goldfish to be found in British homes these days. To give the water a bigger surface area and the fish more oxygen, sensibly this bowl is only half filled. Away from the noise of the fair, goldfish appear in some very odd places. In the dentist's surgery, they're said to soothe the nerves of patients, particularly children. And Sir Winston Churchill was a goldfish fan. He built his own goldfish pools at Chartwell. It's said that he performed simple training experiments on his fish. These are golden orf that he tested to see how much they formed habits, like always gathering within the same feeding spot. From garden ponds, fish have moved, probably as spawn on the legs of birds or as discarded pets, into the river systems of many parts of Britain. Despite their unnatural colours, to a certain extent, they're surviving. Alongside the tench and the roach and the perch, the occasional goldfish is caught. Living wild, their progeny will eventually revert to the natural drab colours that protect them from predatory eyes. Perhaps the best-known goldfish ever was Oscar, the World War II mascot of a United States infantry battalion. He came to Britain in a whiskey bottle and then travelled through the invasion of Europe in a steel helmet. For 1,000 years now, there have been goldfish enthusiasts, people like Police Sergeant Vic Cole. It's they who have modified and shaped Carassius auratus to their taste. Appropriately for a Bristol policeman, Sergeant Cole specialises in breeding Bristol blue shubunkins. He feeds them on tubifex, tiny worms that are collected from the mud of river estuaries. These are babies, only 3 months old. It's from this group that he will select his show fish. What he's looking for is the perfect combination of fin shape, colour and body contour that match the very detailed specifications drawn up by the Association of Goldfish Societies. In fact, Sergeant Cole chose well, for he selected fish that later came first and second in a London show. The fish show is a sort of aquarists' derby day. This one is the Bristol Aquarists' Open Show, and some of the best fish from all over Britain are here. Gathered together here are, according to one's point of view, the zenith of beauty of the goldfish world, or the most grotesque and awful examples of pointless selective breeding. The judges come to their opinions in quietness before the rest of the world is allowed in. Only then, when it has either been labelled a success or failure, may less tutored eyes marvel at the black velvetiness of this prize production of the goldfish breeder. Goldfish have only 3 basic pigments making up their colours: black, yellow and orange. However, reflection and refraction add to these to produce, it would seem, nearly all the colours of the rainbow. This aquatic pug is a lion head. In Japan, they are the most commonly kept of all the exotics. This creature is a very long way from that drab grey carp of the South Chinese rivers. It's a fish that man has created for his own pleasure. It's almost impossible to believe that all these various shapes are one species, but one species they are. If it proves anything, it's the enormous capacity for variety and change that lies dormant in each and every species of animal.